exclusive episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SCS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that covers trending true crime stories with the best guests in all of true crime. And today we are talking our OG story, Donna Adelson, back in a Tallahassee courtroom, begging, ironically, to live outside of jail in Tallahassee, the city she shunned and allegedly set up a murder for hire plot to avoid having to visit. Now she is literally begging not only for her life, but for the judge to allow her to just live in the capital city of Florida, which is Tallahassee. We're going to break this all down. It was close to a 4-hour court hearing today. Here come the best guests in true crime. Stephen Webster was Dan Markel's post-divorce attorney, and he is in Tallahassee. He's one half of Webster and Baptiste. You've seen Louis Baptiste and Stephen Webster, an all-around great guy, as is this person right here, Dave Arenberg. Dave Arenberg, the former Florida state attorney, now a civilian, and he is, are you enjoying life, Dave?
Yeah, busy. I got my own law practice and still doing podcasts and shows like this. And I am a former friend of Danny Markel. May he rest in peace.
Yes, he is. And we usually talk about Dan, and we will, but you're looking at a photo here. And one of the other issues that Donna Adelson, who is Jewish, one of the issues she had is that Dan was becoming too Jewish. You see him here at some sort of holiday dinner wearing a yarmulke, and that was one of Donna's issues. This was Donna in court today, right here. Right away, she gets in, and you see her look into the gallery. It is confirmed that Harvey Adelson, her husband, who, by the way, Carm believes is complicit and has said that from day one, he's sitting in the gallery. This is Harvey today. This is, of course, the father of convicted killer Charlie Adelson. And they're both looking worse for the wear here. But Harvey, up in his 80s, sitting alone, difficult to look at for a number of reasons. But I'm just going to go back. Webster, to you. You look at this picture. What is your first thought?
You know, just desserts. I heard her today. I've listened to a portion of the hearing today, and I heard her say that she's having shooting pains as a result of the sciatica. And I couldn't help but catch the double entendre there. Not that she intended it, but all of the pain and suffering that they're enduring is well-deserved. And frankly, it's overdue. So I'm not one that normally relishes in the pain of others, but in this particular instance, I would be lying if I said that I felt any sympathy for her at all.
Stephen, I'm with you. I consider myself to be an empathetic person, and Dave Arenberg, I took a little heat during the actual hearing, just because I made it some kind of offhanded remark about Donna, and someone said, "Look, this is a human being, but this is a human being accused of a horrific crime, and as much pain as she's in." I talked to Ruth recently. Every time there's a court hearing, they have to relive it, and we might not be done yet. And Richard has it right. It should be all about Danny Markel. I'm just wondering, how you feel about seeing Donna, and it wasn't all tears. And by the way, there were no actual tears that anyone could tell, but there was a lot of this, and then there was some of this as well. Just wondering your thoughts when you're looking at these images yourself.
How many people with severe pain get medical care for free like Donna Adelson's getting? So I don't feel bad for her. She is getting medical attention. She's being kept safe there. She has access to excellent lawyers. She's got money. She's lived a privileged life. And she's there because, allegedly, she helped plot the murder of her son-in-law. And the trial will happen, and it would have happened already, but she listened to her lawyer that there was not a conflict. So she can't blame anyone for this, really, but herself and the decisions she's made. She decided to hire the lawyer that her son had, even though there were obvious conflicts. And so that's why this whole thing's been delayed. And she's being treated like everyone else who is clearly a flight risk, who's been charged with first-degree murder. You don't get out of jail pre-trial if you've been charged with first-degree murder, especially if it's documented that you were trying to fly to a non-extraditable country with a one-way ticket. So yeah, she's not going anywhere pre-trial. She shouldn't expect to. And doesn't matter how many fake tears come out, it's not going to change things.
Yeah, and this photo on the left here is one of the angles when she's looking more toward Jackie Fulford, who is, by the way, sort of a disgraced former judge, now defense attorney, and also owner of a funeral parlor home. But she's looking back. This is sort of the look she was giving Harvey, is what I'm getting at here. But thank you to Idiot Win, new name. Love to see you here. And that is not a $, but we appreciate it. For the lawyers, Stephen Webster, in a free world, one person hangs up, because this is part of one of the issues today was suppressing a very incriminating call. So in a free world, one person hangs up, the call ends. If the jail phone notice does not state that recording extends until both parties ended the call, do you have reasonable expectation of privacy? That was sort of the argument that was being discussed and argued today.
That's the question that Judge Everett will have to answer ultimately. I thought Josh Zellman did a good job of making the argument. Frankly, his point that he made that it's the pattern, or the phone system is set up to keep recording. Even if one of the parties disconnects or if the inmate disconnects, I think that's a solid argument he makes, that it goes beyond just kind of an inadvertence and into at least an argument that it's by design, because it seems that is the design. And then honestly, I found that kind of troubling. Florida's a two-party consent state, and what that means is if you're going to record people who are participating in a conversation, you have to have the consent of everybody involved in the conversation, whereas some states, you don't have to have consent of everybody. It's a one-party consent state. As long as you consent to recording it, you can record it without the knowledge of the other people. So it's a good question. I think Josh made some good arguments. I thought Sarah Dugan's case law that she cited was really powerful as well. Typically speaking, it seems that the courts have erred or have come down on the side that if it's your fault, that you were inadvertently recording, if you are somehow to blame for it, then you can't basically shift that burden onto the state. But we'll see. I thought Josh did a good job making the argument.
Yeah. By the way, I just saw another guest I'm going to introduce in a second. We actually invited Jackie Polvereri, who has spent time behind bars, to get her perspective, and she had a bit of a family emergency. But look who we get. We get Gunnar Lindblom here, Alan, who spent time was it state prison, Gunnar?
Yeah, so you can hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 13 years in the state prison.
13 years. And put it this way, Gunnar was an enforcer. You were part of the Detroit mob. Is that right, Gunnar?
That's what they say.
He's being careful. You are joined by, you've got two criminal defense attorneys. One is a former Florida state attorney. But Gunnar,
well, I wish I would have had them on my court cases. Maybe they'd have got me out of it.
Well, let me tell you, they probably would have.
I got to tell you before I forget, there's a funny, I hate to sidetrack the story, but this is actually a really interesting story. Then you ask me what you want. But when I was in solitary confinement in the hole, I was in the hole for 19 months. And the dude in the cell next to me, his name is Andy Ross. You guys should really look that up. This guy, Andy Ross, a really remarkable story. He killed his whole family, or killed his mom, dad, and brother. And then he got the biggest big shot attorney in Michigan named Neil Rockheim, who I've interviewed. Neil took the case pro bono because it was super high profile. and he got him 22 years. And when he was in prison, he tried to break out of the prison I was in. They hijacked like a truck. They bring in supplies, and they took a truck by knife point and tried and smashed it through the fence. And one of them got shot. Anyway, great story. When I go back to the when he's on the phone, so there's a 5-man rock, and he was in the cell next to me. This kid, Andy Ross. He was only 17 years old. He looked totally normal, and I talked to him all the time. And I like what happened, bro? I'm like, why'd you kill the dog? Because he killed the dog too. And he jokes. He says, I couldn't leave any witnesses. But he was like joking. He seemed like a totally like normal kid. But his parents got on him about getting a job, and he flipped out, loaded up the old 22 hunting rifle, and shot everybody up. But he'd get on the phone, and I'd hear him talking to his lawyer and his girlfriend and his other brother that lived. And he was like basically incriminating himself completely, because my cell's right there. The phone was right in front of his cell. There's 5 cells, and like the phone's right in the middle. I was like in the one, just one over from his. So anyways, he'd get on there and he'd be talking, and I'm thinking, dude, do you hear yourself, man? You're just nailing the coffin, bro. But when I heard he got that, Neil Rockine took the case, and then I knew like he's going to get, I couldn't believe he only got 22 years. Like I got 13 to 50 for extortion and bank robbery. And this dude got murdered 3 people and got 20.
Is he still in?
I believe so. Yeah. He's still in. And dude, I can't believe they tried the very first day that got moved to a new prison. It's called Kinross Correctional Facility. It's the most violent prison in Michigan, 2nd most violent in America. And the day I got there, I refused to lock in the level 1 unit because I was a maximum security guy. I didn't want to go into the low security thing or like minimum where all the little punks were and crackheads. So I refused. So they put me in the hole. So I go straight from the bus into the hole, right? And then that day, I'm in the cell and I hear all this chaos and the alarm. Emergency count, get in your cell, lockdown. There's people running by the windows. I don't even know. Like, I hadn't even been outside yet in the prison, so I don't even know what's happening. But everybody in there in the holes going, man, something's happening. Well, it turned out these 3 dudes, including this Andy Ross dude, the big truck comes in and like delivers food, right? And they drive it into the yard. They open the gate, drive it like a semi truck, bro, like a small semi truck, 18-wheeler, whatever. And not that big, but something like that. And they drive and they back it up to the chow hall, and they unload all the food and everything. And these guys had been plotting it out for months, and they had a girl on the outside willing to help them. One of them was playing a Christian and got her on his side, and she said she'd help them if they get out. And we're going to do it on this day because it always comes this day at this time. We're going to do it. So it's all planned out. And which happened to be the first day I'm in this prison. And anyways, when the civilian truck driver who's kind of got a guard or 2 around him, he backs up. These 3 dudes like run up in there, grab the dude, and put a knife through his throat to get out. And they take this truck, they take control of this truck, and they get like a running start. They had to go in a big circle and get a running start on this big prison yard, and they smashed through the fence, and they almost got it, but the Constantine wire, the barbed wire got caught up in the tire and wrapped up, and like it stalled the truck out. So they were trying to get it going, and that's when the rover cop who's in a truck pulls up. They get out and run, and one of them shoots him in the head, blows his head off with a shotgun, and the other 2 give up. And one of them's that dude Andy Ross, and that's
whoa. Well, he had to get additional time for that, right?
I think for the escape, you get another 5 years. Yeah.
Dave, Dave is a former Florida state attorney. That's not flying in Florida. If you kill your whole family, you're going away. But Miss Brazy here says, one of my faves, Dave Arenberg. He's everybody's favorite.
Thank you.
No mercy for Donna Gotti. You're good. Justice for Dan Markel, Donna Gotti.
But did you have any questions that you were going to ask?
Yeah. Gunner's like me. I don't need to digress because Gunner will do it for me. But Gunner, so the whole Donna Adelson, who had a hearing today, essentially she's 75 years old, and basically the argument went like this: I don't feel well. I have I have small ear canals. I can't properly drain my ears. This is a very difficult place for me to be. Please let me out. Please let me out. Please let me out.
Nobody cares. That's the
thing. Can Can you explain jail?
That's
please?
better than any legal analysis. That's great.
I mean, listen, this is a good question because when I was in prison, I started getting, first of all, I woke up one day with one of my eyes partially blind. Like felt like I had an eye booger, but I couldn't wipe it out. So they put a kite in, which is a kite to the medical. So I do that. And 3 days later, they call me out and they say, well, you got to see an obstetrician. He only comes in once every 6 weeks and he's here last week. So you're going to have to wait 5 weeks to see a doctor. 5 weeks later, I'm still blind, partially blind. I see the doctor and he looks in there with a thing. He says, man, dude, there's a bunch of blood in the back of your eye. I don't know what happened, man. You need to see a specialist. So they did take me to a specialist off campus. That sucks because you're travel all belly shackled and chained. They got this like electric taser things on your legs. So if you try to run, they can zap you from distance. Anyways, so I ended up having to get a series of like 25 shots in my eyes. About a month after that happened, and that's over the next 4 years. But after that happened, I started getting headaches, migraine headaches. And I fought with the medical tooth and nail. They wouldn't give me eventually they gave me some nasal spray. It didn't do nothing. Well, dude, what I had going for me is, I had some power in the street. I had some juice. I had some friends, my wife, my fiance, my wife, and they were getting on the warden and saying, listen, if you don't, give him some medical treatment, we're going to sue you. We're going to get a lawyer and we're going to sue you. And they finally took me to get a septoplasty, believe it or not, because I thought it's because when I got punched in the nose with brass knuckles one time, I thought that smashed my septum, and that wasn't it. So anyways, but
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, it sucked. But I cracked it back in place the day it happened. I was snapped right back in. I was bleeding. But the moral of the story is there's not good medical treatment. But as far as she's concerned, this little thing that you did that you're complaining about, oh, my ear canals. I'm like, I'm sorry, old lady, but you should have thought about that before you conspired to kill somebody or commit crimes or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You can't.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's pretty much how everyone is sort of feeling today. But let me get the train back on the tracks here, and we're gonna play. Just get right into it here. This is Donna today, and she's explaining the Vietnam trip. Why Dave Ehrenberg, I'll never ever understand why they would buy a one-way ticket, but they did. If it was a round trip ticket, I'd say at least they wanted to maybe get away, but and Charlie had some ties to Vietnam. I could maybe believe it, but one way, that's it. Let's listen. These are fairly lengthy clips, so we'll listen and get the reaction from the legal experts and the former inmate who has turned his life around. Here we go.
Husband and I literally shocked and traumatized at what had happened to Charlie. He said, we need to just get some peace. We need to catch our breath. We're going to go away somewhere. And I thought it was a good idea because I couldn't think straight. I really couldn't think straight. I was so upset, and so was he. And it was his idea. He said, sweetheart, let's go, just get away. We're going to just get away somewhere so we can have some time to think.
Okay, so your testimony is that you weren't trying to go to Vietnam because you wouldn't be able to be extradited from there.
So my husband actually had said, we've been to Vietnam before with friends. We were on vacation, and it really was like a place of peace. And so he said, if we go to a non-extradition country, then if the law enforcement decided that they wanted to arrest you or me, or whatever, both, he said, we won't be sitting in a foreign prison waiting months to go back. We could buy it.
I'm going to stop her right there. Webster, I just got done doing, today is a crazy day, but I just did a show. Someone asked me to come on to discuss Ellen Greenberg, which is another inexplicable case. But everything about this irritates me. Her mannerisms, her delivery, her attempt at, being emotionally drained and in pain. And then the fact that she's trying to say that, oh, you know, it was just that we just wanted to get away. We've been there, and the non-extradition had nothing to do with it. I mean, your reaction up to this point, Webster?
I'm not impressed with the performance, and you know, I don't see any chance that this moved the needle with Judge Everett. So, you know, I mean, I've talked to some friends as to why they would put her on the stand to talk about these things, and the only idea that made even a small amount of sense was that maybe they're just going to like focus group this, use it like almost like a mock trial kind of a deal. You know, ask people, you know, how did you receive it? Because I don't, you know, I have a very close friend of mine's a very, very accomplished criminal defense attorney, and you know, his motto is he never files Arthur hearings. You know, he won't file a lot of motions unless he can get the testimony out of law enforcement or whatever, because he will never put his client on the stand and make them subject to cross-examination before trial. And, you know, I think what I've seen so far here, I didn't see this portion of the hearing, but watching this so far, I don't think she's doing herself any favors, and she, it's not coming off well with me either.
Yeah. Dave Arenberg, someone, one of the legal experts today, we had Joe Patuto and Tim Jansen, said that, I think it was Tim, that maybe they were putting her on the stand today, to Stephen's point, to kind of beta test her to see how she would do. And if you ask me, she failed miserably, because a Tallahassee jury, in my opinion, is going to see right through this. Now, keep in mind, she'll have her hair up in the Ned Smith bun. She'll be in a suit, looking demure and old and frail. But I know you read about it. Now that you're seeing her, your thoughts?
I think she took the stand in part because she, like her son, Charlie, thinks that they could just put one over on the jury. And the defense lawyers are saying, no, bad idea. Look what happened to your son. Don't take the stand. And just to sort of show her that he said, okay, you want to take a stand here? We'll let you take the stand in the Arthur hearing. You can do it there. And then we can talk about it afterwards. Then we can evaluate what happened. So I think this is their way to beta test her on the stand for her own sake, to actually show her that, yeah, it didn't work well. Look, we lost this hearing. We lost every single ruling. It's going to be a bad idea to do this in front of the jury. Trust us. So I think that is what happened. She's not winning this. That explanation she gave makes no sense. She says essentially after Charlie was convicted, she and her husband walked around a daze. They were confused for days, and they managed to somehow get their wits together to pack, buy tickets, make a plan to leave, but all in a one big daze. They didn't know what they were doing, and they needed peace. So instead of going, you know, a few miles away to the Bahamas, they traveled across the world to a non-extraditable country. And that took planning, because she said she would do that in the call with Charlie, either go to a non-extraditable country or commit suicide. So this was just a way that she tried to explain it. It didn't work. It's like when Charlie tried to explain why his stapled money was found in the presence of Katie Magbanua. He said, well, the double extortion plot. Both mother and son are talking garbage, and the juries will see right through it.
Yeah. We're gonna play it out, and then I'm gonna get Gunner's take on the emotion or lack thereof. So this again is Donna today explaining why she bought a one-way ticket to Vietnam via Dubai. I mean, it's just makes no sense. Here we go.
A ticket, and we can go home. And my understanding was that I could go home and I could turn myself in if that's what they wanted.
Okay. But you were hoping to make it out of America in time before you were arrested, right?
I wanted to get away. He wanted to get away. That's what we wanted to do. And it wasn't, we spoke to our attorneys. I asked them, they said there's no pending. We purposely called them to make sure it was legal to do it. And they said there's no, what were their words? There's no pending charges and there's no warrants. So you want to go. So I thought you asked.
I'm going to stop it there again because I have questions. And Gunnar, we'll get to you in a minute, I promise. But Dave Ehrenberg, to you. I have an interview that I did with Rashbound where I asked him about this, but on this call that's also part of the hearing today. And for those who don't know, it's basically Donna on what they refer to as the hot mic, or the non-hang-up call, and she's referring to Dan about taking off to Vietnam. I mean, is this enough for consciousness of guilt? How is Judge Everett going to instruct jurors when they inevitably hear this testimony?
Yeah, this is conscious of guilt. This is obvious to everyone, including your viewers who are writing in. No one buys this. It's because she bought a one-way ticket. Had they bought the round-trip ticket, they'd have a legitimate argument. They were not trying to flee. But there's a few problems with that. It's a one-way ticket. Number two, they talked about going to a non-extraditable country in advance. And then not only did they go to or try to go to a non-extraditable country, where they were stopping in Dubai is also a non-extraditable place. So they had it all planned out. It's clear that they were trying to escape. And I don't think anyone buys it. It will be used against her as conscious of guilt. And it's a powerful bit of evidence, because remember, the case against Donna is not as strong as the case against Charlie. But this was like a gift that Donna gave to prosecutors in trying to leave. And they're going to see that video of her being arrested. And she looks terrible about it, especially when she tries to grab her phone away from the cops. Yeah. She's not going to take the stand, or if she does, it's not going to work. But either way, they're going to hear from her one way or another through the recordings.
I mean, Dave, have you ever dealt with a situation where a defendant is saying, well, I was supposed to hang up on the call. The call wasn't supposed to continue. I mean, you guys monitor in your old job as state attorney of Palm Beach County. You have people monitoring jailhouse calls. Have you had a defendant say, wait, state attorney Ehrenberg, I thought I hung up?
No, I haven't seen that happen before. But then again, she's not Miss Technology. She's there, she's like a Rudy Giuliani, butt dialing people and giving up the ghost. This is what she did. She was giving incriminating stuff while she thought that they were still talking, or I'm sorry, she thought, that's right, she didn't know they had hung up. And so that's the argument, saying that, well, she didn't know they had hung up, so in essence it shouldn't have been recorded. Here's the problem with that. The state has a recording every few seconds saying your call is being recorded. Your call is being recorded. So there's no expectation of privacy. Plus, whose responsibility is it to properly hang up a phone? Is it the state of Florida's responsibility, or is it Donna Adelson's responsibility? You know the answer.
Yeah. We got Dave for about 10 more minutes, I think. So I will have to press him a little bit more before we go. And then we'll have Stephen and Gunnar, as long as Gunnar can hang out. I know he's also a busy guy. Alicia Elliott here. Webster, to you, can the prosecution use Donna's testimony from today against her during the trial? In other words, anything that she said, can it be used against her in a court of law from today?
Anytime a party makes a statement, it can be used against them. It's a party opponent statement. But what I would expect the state to do is if she takes the stand in her defense, is cross-examine her on this same point. And if she offers contrary testimony, then they could impeach her with the transcripts. And that's probably the way I would expect this to go down. But I mean, they could absolutely use the statements against her. I would note that I think it was KCL just commented that Donna, it was clear to her Donna had rehearsed this part. Mm-hmm. And that was certainly my take when she did that, like rapid blinking, like looking. That felt so contrived to me, like somehow that was to make her look feeble, frail. And I had the same sentiment that, it was totally rehearsed and
bad acting.
Wasn't well performed. Yeah, she's not the actress her daughter is.
No. And you know what? I mean, the rub against Charlie, I think, was that he was too smooth. Like, she's not smooth at all, but Charlie was like too rehearsed. So it is a fine line. I mean, Webster, just back to the fact that she's basically, in essence, so those who have not been following closely, what she wants right now, she's not feeling well in jail. She wants to be let out with her husband in Tallahassee at some location where she'd be ankle monitored and watched. Is the irony lost on you there, Webster, the fact that she hated Tallahassee? And the jurors, do you think there's any chance they buy the old lady, victimhood here.
I don't think that she's ever going to sell anything to a jury. I think the evidence the state has convicts her 10 times out of 10. And the irony is kind of delicious, isn't it? That like her dream now is to reside in Tallahassee outside of the Leon County Jail. That was lost on me until you said it, but that is beautiful. I'm kind of just savoring that right now. As in Abby crossing there, I think that was a point that I was kind of wondering why it wasn't discussed more. The risk of self-harm, because I personally, I think people smarter than me might disagree, and I'm not, it's not my area of expertise, but I just think she loves herself too much to ever actually go through with something. But there's certainly reason to be concerned about it. So I think that's another reason why she should remain right where she is. And she's going to, this is part of the process up here in the state of Florida that, if you're accused like this, you're going to sit in jail until you have your day before the jury, especially when you have this level of evidence to suggest that she's a flight risk.
Yeah, Dave, just to add on to that. So what Abby Crossing, who's very smart, friend of the show, friend of ours, was saying is they were making the argument that, she is a flight risk, but did not make the argument. And she talked about it on the call about she at one point said that she was considering self-unaliving herself. Why would Sarah Dugan for the state not bring that up? Is there some sort of legal strategy involved?
Well, Abby makes a good point. Also, Joan, good to see you. You have such nice viewers, by the way. They say such nice things.
We do. We do have the best. I always say best guest, better community. Go ahead.
Yes. So there's an assumption, a default that you get pretrial release, unless you can show that the person is a flight risk or is at risk of retaliating against witnesses, intimidating witnesses, or is a danger to the community. You see, I didn't mention risk of self-harm. And so prosecutors just sticking to those three areas. They could have talked about risk of self-harm, but really it's those three areas that you argue to keep someone behind bars pre-trial. And there's plenty of evidence of being a flight risk. So they didn't need to go any further.
Yeah. I'll get to, I just saw a comment asking about Dan Rashbaum, and honestly, I don't know where anything stands with him, and I don't want to have these guys even comment on that because it's not their world. But shout out to Philadelphia shoulder surgeon. Don't go too far, Gunner. But here's the rest of.
I got a cat. I'll be right back. I got a cat stuck in my soffit.
Your attorneys, and they tell you that I'm going.
But Dan did tell you, as you say in the jail call, that knowing what they're thinking up there, I don't know if you'll make it out in time. I really don't. But he said you might, or you might get to the airport and they'll stop you. It could happen.
That's what he said.
Right. So you went to the airport knowing that it could happen. They could stop you at the airport. You could end up being arrested.
Yeah, that's what Dan said.
Right. And when you were looking at places to go those couple of days after Charlie Adelson's trial, you were specifically looking, though, for countries that did not have extradition with the U.S.
For the reason I just told you.
Right. And the reason that you're saying that you were looking for countries with no extradition was so that you could get back faster in order to be arrested in the U.S.
No, that's not what I said. It's because, I don't know, maybe we watch too much TV or too many movies, but I've seen movies where people are stuck in like third world prisons and waiting and waiting and waiting. And my feeling was, this is not what we want to happen. If the state says they want us to come back, we'll buy a ticket. We'll come back on our own terms. We don't have to be sitting in a jail somewhere. We'll come back home and turn ourselves in.
Couldn't you have done that no matter what country you went to?
No.
You couldn't have found out that you had a warrant for your arrest and come back if there was an extradition
Well,
policy?
not if they would. I'm I'm not in law enforcement, but it appears that they would notify law enforcement in that country, and then they could hold you in a jail for God knows how long.
I see Ehrenberg smiling. Dave, what's going on in that mind? And I never want you to leave, but I know you have to. But
thank you. I'm sorry, man. But what's funny is that she can't hide her contempt for people in other countries and other cities like Tallahassee. And she says that she didn't want to be held in some third world country. Then don't go to a so-called third world country, right? Instead of fleeing to Vietnam, maybe you want to go to Paris or Italy or someplace that's up to your standards. Then you don't have to worry about being held in a jail in a third world country. She doesn't like third world countries, but instead of going to Western Europe, she's going to Vietnam. And why is she going to Vietnam? Because it has no extradition treaty, and she thinks that gives her the freedom to come back if she's charged here. It's the opposite. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the double extortion theory. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Ehrenberg, always insightful. I love that last catch by you about the sort of the disdain she has for different countries. Interesting point. She had that for Tallahassee, and now she's going to get her comeuppance, as they say. But Ehrenberg, you're the man. Where do we find you on the YouTubes, the internets these days? Where are we finding you?
Thank you. Yes, I'm on YouTube at Court Authorities. I've got the YouTube channel Court Authorities. Also, you can find me all over social media, but and I do videos for the Midas Touch Network. But you know where I love to be? Right here at Surviving the Survivor. It's amazing how many people come up to me to say, I saw you at STS. It's true. You got a big following, Joel.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for being here and me having you. Love doing it. And we'll get you back on soon, Dave.
All right. Great to be with you and the best guests. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Let me, Gunnar, there's a question for you. So let me just play this out and I'll explain and we'll get your take. Here we go.
And I didn't want that to happen. So he said, well, that's why we'll do it this way, honey. That way, if they do notify us, so we get a phone call from our attorney or from law enforcement, then we'll buy a ticket, we'll go home.
Okay.
And so it would have been on our terms. That was the point. That was the reason that he thought that was a good idea.
And your
Before you continue, Ms. Dugan, we are over time. If you please get your most pertinent questions.
Yes, sir. I guess your testimony ultimately, though, is that you were not trying to go to a country with no extradition because you were trying to avoid being held accountable for this charge. That's your testimony?
Being held, I didn't do this.
Okay.
Being held accountable for this is not what happened.
Being arrested for this case.
Being arrested?
Right. That was not what you were trying to avoid by trying to go to a non-extradition country.
We're trying to get our heads on straight and just breathe.
That's all that happened.
That's that. We have more to go. So Gunnar, today, one of the reasons she wants out of jail is it kind of came to the attention of authorities that she had been assaulted on 3 different occasions. One was a woman, according to her, who touched her buttocks, her upper buttocks in the shower. I mean, for those who have not been behind bars, and I hope that I never am, the question is right here, by the way, is she going to pay? This particular inmate, I don't think is in anymore, but for a 75-year-old woman who is essentially ratting or snitching, which is really looked down upon in the joint, will she get any kind of blowback for this at 75 years old? Oh, I'm sorry, I have you muted. Hang on one sec, Gunnar. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got
First
you.
of all, this whole charade of hers is insulting. Let's face it. Like this whole charade about the Vietnam and all this. It's insulting. And if I was a juror, I'd convict her based on that. You think I'm an idiot? Like clearly, it's obvious what you're doing, what you did, where you were going. Now you're sitting here, kind of citing this rehearsed monologue of a lie about reasons why. Listen, nobody cares that you're in jail. Like the criminal you are and should be. All right. I was a criminal, reformed, not anymore. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But when I was in, I deserved to be in. This woman committed crimes willingly, and she should be in there. This old lady, like, they're going to have a hierarchy, a pecking order in prison with women. And some of the older or bigger women could be racially motivated, whatever. They're going to mess with her, especially if they know she's high profile. And so so grabs their butt or says something or threatens them, or that's part of being in jail. When you're like that, you're that old, typically in jail, old people are kind of off limits. Nobody really bothers them unless they're rats or pedophiles or rapists or something like that. Then there's no holds barred. You can do whatever you want.
We saw what happened to Wendi Bulger. I mean, he got taken out because he was an informant, and he was in a wheelchair. But man, I had another question for you, and it just skipped it. It'll come back to me. But Webster, let me go to you on the video we just saw, and we're going to play some more video. On what we just saw, how much is she coached by Zellman and Jackie Fulford in terms of what she says and how she says it? Is there actual, real coaching that you guys have to do as defense attorneys?
I'm confident that they mocked this with her and prepared it and had her prepared to answer probably these precise questions. I think on one of the last times I was on your show, I may have commented that, I've worked with Jackie Fulford in the past pretty closely, and she knows her way around a courtroom. I think that showed today in the portions I watched. She knows how to present evidence, how to cross-examine. So she also knows how to think like a prosecutor. And so I have no doubt that she had an in-depth mock cross-examination with Donna, and that many of these questions they certainly were prepared to answer. And that like I said, even with the batting of the eyes, I mean, I feel like that is something that either it's a tell, like a poker tell, or it's Donna thinking that it makes her look sympathetic or frail, or almost like she's being attacked and she's shocked and she's scared. But there's no doubt. I mean, they would have prepared for this, and I, like you said, the point you made earlier about how smooth Charlie was, I mean, he was smooth. He didn't get rattled. It was clear he was lying. I mean, the lie was so terrible that no liar could sell that lie. He had everything like memorized. It just didn't make sense. He knew every date of every specific incident. It was a little much, I think. But Lorna brings up a good point too. When we were just watching that exchange between Sarah Dugan and Donna Adelson, she mentions, I didn't realize how many times, but she mentions Dan a lot, multiple times. Dan Rashbaum, her former criminal defense attorney. Lorna's saying she's throwing him under the bus. I mean, are there, in your opinion, repercussions coming Dan's way? I mean, he has apparently been cited by the Florida State Bar. I don't know where any of that stands. And personally, like, I dealt with Dan, and no matter what you think of him, I think at his core, he's a decent guy. You can't always figure out who you're going to represent. But is that a problem for him, is my question, that she's invoking his name over and over? I don't know now if this portion of it is going to cause Dan any blowback. I mean, it was perilously close, though, to crossing a line. I don't think it crossed the line because she didn't have pending charges. He didn't have any affirmative information. They were about to be charged. But, that's a conversation I would not want to have with a client, the one that she is reciting now, that basically he said, well, you don't have any charges now, go. And if she ever were to come around and say, like Dan said, I have reason to believe they're about to indict you or charge you, you should get out of here, go to a non-extraditable country, then I would change my opinion on it. But I absolutely believe Dan, and I have no personal animosity towards the man. He's doing his job. But I mean, I feel like the delay that he caused with the docket, with his conflict and the turmoil that it caused, he had to know better. It was his responsibility to foresee that conflict and look down the road. And, it wasted judicial resources, a substantial amount of judicial resources. And frankly, I mean, it reflected very poorly on the profession. So I feel like there should be some consequences for it.
Well said. Webster, always very insightful. If you appreciate the content and it takes a lot of work, please hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. And there is a Patreon page that we are continually working on. You can support the channel there as well. Look at this, hot coffee chats. Can I get a free membership? Right on cue. We'll see what we can do. We are a very giving community. And there are people who sponsor, including us, memberships. So I know it's tough for some people. The price of eggs are through the friggin' roof right now. You can't even find eggs, and it's tough times. Oh, by the way, Julie Fruit, even if you hate the content, please like and subscribe. But Gunnar, before we play some more video, I heard this today. She's quote unquote a high profile inmate. I heard it earlier, and then you brought it up. What is really done inside the system with these high profile inmates? Are they really being watched that much more closely? Are they really being protected? Because let's face it, you also have some corrections officers that are, not the most kosher. But is it a reality or a fallacy that these high profile inmates are really well protected?
Okay. First of all, regarding eggs, get you some chickens. I got 5 chickens. I got all the eggs I need. More than I can eat. I give them to you. And so the other thing I wanted to mention, and I'll get to that question, is I'm the developmental editor at White Pine Publishing Consulting, right? So that's my job. I'm a novelist, and I help others.
Tell us the title of your books again. Tell us the title of your books and where to get
it. The titles of my books are To Be a King, Volume 1 and 2. And the name of my publishing company is White Pine Publishing and Consulting. And what I do is I help people develop good books, so stories. So they come to me with a good idea or a good book or a story, and I turn it into something great. Now, if I was looking at this story objectively and I was helping an author develop this story, I would be ashamed. Like, I wouldn't even let my authors, and I'm serious, I wouldn't let my authors, because I coach them through the whole process. It takes, several months. If they came to me with a chapter or a scene or evolution of an event that had this woman acting that bad and playing that out, I would slap them. I'd be like, this is so bad. Go back and rewrite this whole thing. So it's shocking how much how stupid she thinks everybody is. But I guess that's the only card you got to play. That's what you got to play. Now back to inside prison, high profile. So I was considered a high profile inmate, and nobody was protecting me. Whenever I'd leave the cell, because I was in the hole for almost months, they'd I don't want to say high profile. Once I was in prison, I wasn't. When I was in the county jail fighting, I was. But they always walked me with like 4 cops. So I was belly shackled, ankle, wrist shackled. But where she's at, they're not really doing much to protect her. They're not putting her in solitary confinement or PC, protective custody. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. So she is perfectly fine in there. She is no worse off than anybody else in there. Yes, she's old, but there's other old people in there. It's a county jail, so it's not as comfortable as like a prison. But she's in a county jail, right?
Yeah, county jail, Leon County Jail. Yep.
So the best case scenario for her is they have her in protective custody, or suicide watch, perhaps. But normal scenario, that is, you're out there with everybody else. She's sitting in the day room watching the TV or playing cards or whatever, just like everybody else. Now, if they found out she had money, that's different. Now, I don't know if she does, but if they found out she had money,
it's rapidly diminishing, but they were very wealthy at one point.
Okay, so that's definitely a problem, because now you will most certainly get some predatory inmate, female inmate, somebody big, and they will grab her up and beat her up a little bit in the cell, slap her up and threaten her and say, if you don't send me X amount of money to my, green dot, use green dot or cash app it to my whoever, then I'm gonna beat your ass every day while you're in here, and then if you tell on me, I'm gonna kill you. Like I'm gonna get out of the hole. I'm gonna stab you and cut your throat and kill you. And so that's a very real possibility for somebody like her. She can't really fight. She's old, but I think she's not doing herself any favors by getting on the stand. Your attorney friends, they'll be the first to tell you that like the worst thing you can do is take the stand and start talking, because especially if you're guilty, then you're just going to look like a moron. And that's what she does look like to me, like a kind of like a caged rat, if you will. She's just hoping and pleading that maybe somebody will be stupid enough to believe her, and maybe they'll let her out or whatever. But it's not going to happen because nobody's that dumb.
Yeah, she's old. And
by the way, I love this dynamic of Gunner and Webster on a show. It's definitely interesting. And then I'm in the middle refereeing, which is even, can't tell you that I'm not terrified. But Gunner, were you ever? I got to ask you. I'm curious, just myself. Were you ever scared? I mean, you're obviously still a big, strong dude. Were you ever scared in prison? You can tell me.
Listen, bro. If anybody tells you, if somebody tells you that they weren't scared every day in prison, they're a bold-faced liar, bro. They're bold-faced liar. Everybody's scared in prison. Everybody, every day, every minute. The second I wake up, my bunkie didn't even like me half the time, and I had an argument with him last night. And he's in here for murder, and I know he's got a shank. You might wake up in the middle of the night getting stabbed to death. As soon as you walk out of your cell, you're in danger. So I'm a tough guy. I was a tough guy in the street. I was known as a tough guy. My reputation followed me in. Everybody I knew was, nasty with my fists, and I was a gangster and all that. Doesn't matter, because there's always somebody badder. There's always multiples. Even if I knock somebody out, 5 of them gonna get me in a weight pit while I'm working out, start stabbing me, jump me, hit you with a dumbbell, boom. So you're always scared. Always. I was scared to the moment I walked out of prison after 13.3 years. And it didn't really hit me, like the weight of that, the magnitude of that didn't hit me until about 5 hours later, when my boys drove me up to my surprise my fiance, and I said, I want to have a private moment. I'm gonna sneak up on her. And they kept going. I said, give me 10 minutes. I'm gonna sneak through the woods and sneak up on her. And as I was getting through the woods, man, I literally broke into tears, because it was a beautiful sunny day. The sun was out. I could hear the birds chirping and the insects, and I'm out in the woods. And I go, like, this is the first time I could breathe without fear in 13.3 years. Like I was safe. I made it to that spot and finally was like, I'm actually safe and can breathe here. And then started my life. But yeah, if anybody tells you they're not scared in prison, they're just lying to you. Don't buy it.
Well, that's I'm very happy to hear that from you, because I'd be terrified, and I don't even. Everyone's making fun of me. Joel's blood pressure is rising. This is making Joel's fears lessen with a laugh emoji. Kathy here says, thank you for this super chat. I was extorted for over $30,000 when my son was incarcerated. So you see that it does happen. It definitely does happen.
Do you know who White Boy Rick is? Do you know heard of the story?
Yeah, I do.
Yep. I'm friends with him. I just talked to him. But anyways, a documentary is being made on my life, and the director who made the White Boy Rick documentary for Netflix is making a documentary on my life. So that's pretty cool. But anyways, they were constantly trying to extort him in prison, right? So no matter where he went, they were the gangs, like Nation of Islam, would come swoop in and say, you got to pay or else. You got to pay or else. It got so bad that they moved him to a federal penitentiary out of state. Took him right out the state, moved him. And he did his last 18 years in federal penitentiaries, because they couldn't put him anywhere because the gangs would try to extort him and stuff. What are you gonna do? You're one guy. You're some, one. Yeah, I got no money. I went to prison got busted with 8 kilos. That's not even that much coke. And then he, all these years later, he's got nothing. But they just assumed he had money, so they're gonna extort him, which is, that's prison.
Yeah. I don't want to know about it. Webster, to you, Judge Everett reserved ruling on both motions, the so-called hot mic call, where she's talking about fleeing to Vietnam, and then all these health issues. By the way, we're going to stay on this tomorrow, because I want to get other perspective from people close to this in Tallahassee. So I think Tim Jansen's coming back tomorrow, and a few other people, just to break this down. But When do you think we should expect a ruling from Judge Everett on both these motions? And do you see any scenario where Donna Adelson is allowed out of those from behind those prison bars, jail bars?
I don't think there's any chance that she's going to get out pre-trial. I mean, there was really no chance to begin with, but when you get caught at the airport with one-way tickets to non-extraditable countries,
Right.
like there's no way.
That's
Earlier we were talking about, the purpose of bail is to ensure that somebody will appear and to protect the public when necessary if they pose a danger to society at large, and no conditions of pre-trial release can protect the community, then you incarcerate them and incapacitate them. And so, I mean, there's no chance there. As far as when we'll get a ruling on the motions, I would expect that Judge Everett will have something within a week or maybe 2 weeks. I mean, it would be pretty prompt turnaround.
Let me ask you, so inside baseball, what happens there? Like, did judges confer with, there's like a chief judge? Does he just make this decision on his own? Is there even a decision to be made? Is it just the optics that he's got to make the court look like it's weighing the possibility? I mean, it seems like everyone and their mother, except for Donna, realizes she's not getting out. So what's really kind of going on behind the scenes?
I don't think with Judge Everett, it's optics. I'm not going to say that's not something that factors with other courts, but with him, I don't believe that there's any concern for that. And it depends on the judge whether or not they, confer with each other. I mean, it's not uncommon, the judges. Being a judge is a lonely existence. A lot of folks, they aspire to get on the bench, right? And like most professions, you have friends that are with your colleagues are your friends. So all of a sudden you get on the bench, and now, well, what's my relationship look like with these lawyers who have always been my friends? If people see us out at dinner, what are they going to think if they turn around and appear in my courtroom? So the judges here in Leon County, they used to, and I'm guessing a lot of them still do. They used to go to lunch together, quite often. But it just depends on the judge. I'm not sure, what Judge Everett's network looks like. But I feel like on these issues, he probably is going to trust his own voice. As far as the bail goes, I don't think there's a whole lot of consternation there. With respect to the privacy of the phone call and whether, she had a reasonable expectation of privacy or it's one that society would recognize. I think the Judge Everett's going to land on that on his own. There's not really any advice he can get from another judge because the case law, the universe of the case law was presented to him today, and there's nothing directly on point. So he can, he may talk to another judge or several other judges about it, but at the end of the day, he's going to have to figure out under this factual scenario, what does the law recognize? And he's going to have to live with it. So I would expect that he's going to trust his own voice on that and reach his own decision.
So thank you for that, Stephen. In TV news, we think we're smart. We have dumb lingo, and you guys have all heard of the word tease or a teaser. So I have 4 clips here. I was going to play all 4, but each side gave a closing argument today, in essence, kind of previewing what we could expect in the trial. I'm going to save those 2 for tomorrow. We have one more clip of Donna, but I'm going to save those closings to see who's stronger, why they're stronger, who makes the better points, and we'll get more analysis tomorrow. But this here, Gunner and Webster, just so you know, this is Donna explaining the assault that she experienced in the shower. I will warn you, this discusses
graphic.
No, it's not that graphic, but it does involve Donna and the sex word. So I'm warning you. That could,
no, my virgin ears.
It could rub people the wrong way. Here we go.
Brain bleach.
That took place in the shower. Could you just briefly describe to the judge what happened there?
Yeah, so I always, there's 7 shower heads, but I always take the same one because it's off in a corner, so I have a little bit more privacy than you'd have at the other ones. And so I would always shower there, and I was under the shower and I was washing my hair, and I was the only one in the shower. I always go in early morning because there's nobody there. Most of the girls sleep. So I take a shower and I have a little privacy. And so I was washing my hair, and all of a sudden I felt a hand go up my back, like from the top of my butt, up my back. And
I'm going to hold it right there. Seems like a good a spot as any. Gunner, so they had witnesses come up, and two of the witnesses are actually from the Leon County Jail. And one is charged with investigating this. And I don't think she either refused or did not have a name of the person. Number one, does that raise suspicion? Number two, I mean, I just want your take on this, because there's people that are book smart and street smart. I don't know where you are. I think you're probably very book smart, but I know you're very street smart, because you can't make it through prison without being that way. Is she just, to you, does she just come across as a complete fraud? Like, what are you making up to this point?
Well, it's not come across. She is. That's not a question. It's not a question to you or anybody else listening. Everybody knows this is an act. She's a fraud. And even if something like that did happen in prison, so you're not like super old and frail. If you don't like it, turn around and smack them. Turn around and punch them, and then fight like everybody else has to do. You're not special. You know what I'm saying? You're just another, old lady who committed a crime in jail. It is what it is. You want everybody to feel sorry for you, the judge and the jury. Nobody cares. You broke the law. It's just like me when I went to prison. Once I became a number, nobody felt bad for me. I had a girlfriend and a life and a house and cat and a dog. I had a beautiful life before I went to prison. Nobody cared. Second, they just said, bang, you're out of here, go. And nobody cared. Only people, she's getting airplay because of you, and she's a public case. But outside of that, I don't really feel, I do have empathy as a human and as a Christian. I have empathy for somebody who's suffering, but there are consequences to your actions, and she's suffering those consequences now, and there's just no way out of them. Serve your time, do what you got to do. And that's what I did. I didn't cry. Or, if you want to unalive yourself, well, that's an option. But in the meantime, all this acting, bad acting, it's not helping you at all. Nobody, like, maybe somebody's feeling sorry for her, but not many. Normal people are going, this is a bad act, and she's rehearsing all this stuff, and somebody touched me and all that. But I have to run because I'm 2 minutes late for something else already.
Gunner, thank you so much. We appreciate your perspective. We're going to get you back on. Name of the book one last time: To Be a King.
To Be a King, volume 1 and 2 is my books. But make sure, so anybody who has publishing needs, ghostwriting, publishing, if you're writing a book or thinking about writing a book, you've written one, it needs editing, you need help publishing, you need any of those things. We publish for a very high-end publisher. So we're one of those companies that do everything really high-end. We're not like some rock, one of these little scammy publishers companies.
How do people find you? How do people find you?
whitepinepublishing.com, or you can go to my website, Gunner Detroit, but whitepinepublishing.com. And if you have any questions, it's free consultation. You just hit us up and we'll have a conversation with you. And if we can help you, we will.
Gunner, thanks, man. Have a great night. Appreciate you being here.
You too, man. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Take care. Webster, I can't say that I wasn't a little concerned when I saw Gunner pop up and know that I have clean cut Dave Ehrenberg. And Webster did construction. He was a blue collar guy before becoming a wealthy criminal defense attorney. So there you go. So I was a little, but Gunner's awesome. And he does enjoy speaking, and I do too. So I think we're both guilty of the same thing. We're going to finish watching the Donna thing. We're going to get Webster's take, another question or two. We're going to wrap it up. Webster's been very generous with his time, and he allows me to call him Webster. Here we go.
Hey, stop it. And I turned, and so this girl said, "You like it?" And I said, "Get out of here." And I started to scream, and she ran.
Okay. In the bathroom there, what was this? Which pod was this in?
It's in the annex.
In the annex. Okay. In the annex, are there guards positioned inside the area where you shower?
No.
Inside the area where you use the restroom?
No.
Okay. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is what transpired in October of, thank you, October of 2024, where you had said previously you were attacked. What were you doing? Where were you at, first of all, when that took place?
In October. So I was I was in the bathroom. It's 10:30 at night. I went in to brush my teeth. There's there are three sink stations in the bathroom. Each one has 4 sinks, and I was at the center station with my back to the door, and I'm a righty, so I was holding my toothbrush with my right hand, and I was balancing myself with my left hand on the sink, just brushing my teeth. That's all I was doing.
And what happened?
And someone came up behind me and pulled my left hand away from the sink and twisted my arm and like jerked it behind my back, like reaching up toward my neck.
Okay.
And
Did it hurt?
yeah, it hurt.
Okay. What?
I'm gonna hold it there because I can't take it. Again, I mean, Stephen, I can't like overstate like the histrionics. It's gonna fail miserably with a Tallahassee jury, because I've been to Tallahassee. I've said it before. It's the most educated city in the state of Florida, because it is the capital, and a lot of great guys like Webster, Louis Baptiste, Tim Jansen, the rest are all up there. And again, tomorrow I'm going to play the rest of these clips. There's 2.5 more clips to go here. Just watching what you watched today, what do you portend for this trial? We're getting close now. It's June 3rd. We're obviously going to be up there covering this gavel to gavel. I can't get over. I mean, people are saying here the bad acting. Patty Barnett is saying it. Sharon I with the vomit emoji. But from what you saw today, what does this portend for Donna's future?
She has no jury appeal in Tallahassee, period. And then when you pile on all of the horrible things she said about Tallahassee over the years that are rooted in the record, yeah, she's done. She's toast. I mean, I have respect for Jackie Fulford and for Josh Selman and their capabilities and their talents as lawyers. I mean, they're talented. The parts I watched today, I thought you could see that. They put on a crisp hearing. They called witnesses. They got to the pertinent questions, and they moved quickly. They weren't repetitive. They had the right questions. They put the information they could put in the record. They got it. They created the record today, and I thought they did so efficiently. But at the end of the day, the double extortion theory didn't work. It's not going to work again. And she's married to that unless they have some wild, departure from it. So she has no appeal here, Joel. It's kind of like it's local lawyers more often than not. It's good to have a local lawyer because they can identify with the jurors, at least theoretically. They kind of know what the jurors like and what they don't like and what works and what doesn't work. And everything about Donna doesn't work in Tallahassee.
I don't mean to laugh, but that pretty much, I'm loopy because I've done 47 shows today, but I appreciate that. I've got to ask you the final question I've asked you many times before, but we're getting closer. I am convinced that the state has stuff we don't know about. They seize things. Will Wendi with an I be next on Georgia's list of who to get as it pertains to the Dan Markel murder?
I've been maintaining that she will, and I still stand by that. I do believe she will be charged. I think Donna's going to be convicted, and I think she's going to go down in glorious fashion. I don't think there's going to be any sort of long deliberation. And I think depending upon what evidence is revealed here and how things go, I expect that the state will turn the crosshairs onto Wendi, and I trust that she's going to be held accountable. And that's certainly what I'm praying for.
As Carmela would say, my beloved mother, Stephen Webster is a gentleman and a scholar and just an all-around great guy. And the fact that he was doing construction work before becoming a lawyer, I love it even more. He was literally getting his hands dirty And now he's one of the top attorneys in Tallahassee. This is what it's all about. Remembering Dan Markel. We'll put a link in for Justice for Dan Markel, which is spearheaded by a number of people, including Jared Ross, who's oftentimes a best guest here. Again, hope you appreciated the show. No Court TV for me tonight. I was released from that, but I am doing Josh Ritter's Courtroom Confidential in just a couple minutes. So hope you'll join me there at about 8:30. Webster, as always, I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your expertise. We'll see everybody, but we're going to be back here playing the rest of these videos tomorrow with different perspective. Love you, America. Love you, Tallahassee. And of course, always justice for Dan Markel. And we're thinking of Ruth, Phil, and Shelley.